6:02.
6:02. Call this workshop to order.
That's right. Public comments, Mary? All right. We do have one comment as staff. If y'all haven't met Kathy, who came to work for us last week, that's Kathy.
Hi there.
Hi, Kathy.
Thank you.
But other than that, we have no comments. Moving on to regular business 3.1, consideration, discussion, possible action on a resolution by the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation authorizing the EDC Board Chair Steve Mills and/or Executive Director Sean Kirkpatrick to execute all necessary contracts and related documentation necessary to finalize the conveyance of 903 Main Street to Zentech Properties. We should have the final contract back from David and Libby Sartain, hopefully tomorrow, if not the latest Wednesday. We've got all the final contract language at least agreed on internally. This resolution allows Steve and I to execute the remaining documents moving forward to closing. Approval.
Okay, we have a motion.
Joe made a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
No, I'm moving too fast. I can't write that fast. Item 4 is a workshop session, so if Steve will call us into workshop.
Okay. If we will now move into the workshop session and go right to 4.1.
So, everybody here got a preview of the first version of the budget at the last board meeting. I think Joe was absent, but we need to move through the budget process and discuss, make sure that we're all still as staff on the same page. We've gone through and updated the FY16-17 numbers. If you'll start with me in the yellow on the right under revenue, the City Finance Director has updated the sales tax projected number. I concur with where she's at. 2.2 million in sales tax next year. We've collected all of the lease agreement revenue for the sales tax, but it's allocated on an annualized basis due to some accounting rules. So we'll have 13,800 in recognized revenue from the cell tower lease in the industrial park. Interest income for next year with the changes that we've made, we're looking at about $10,000 in interest income, and then on some notes that we hold about $1,500. So for a total revenue, that top number in bold, 2.234,800 in total revenue. Any questions on revenue? You'll see a number right below that that's in bold, that 470,901. That's the difference between basically our operating expenses and revenue currently as the budget is laid out. And the number to the left at 338,774.85 is a very conservative projected number for the end of FY15-16. We think that number will be a little bit higher, probably 100,000 or so higher for the end of the year. But moving on down, total expenses, you'll look at 15-16. We're projecting about 1.8 million in expenses, and currently for FY16-17, we're projecting 1.763 million before any CapEx projects or the 2008A calling those bonds. So,
So your fiscal year runs the same as the city's?
it does.
Okay.
October 1st to September 30th. No, that's a good question.
Year end.
So we're in the last quarter of the year.
Okay, I just didn't know exactly when your year end.
So operational salaries, you'll see a slight increase there with Angela's step increase. Jenny will have a step increase, and then that also builds in my performance raise for passing my certified economic developer exam. That does leave Kathy at a part-time position, so we'll be staffed at 3.5 employees currently for FY16-17. Moving down, you're looking at longevity at $450. You're looking at Social Security. Group insurance is going to change a little bit, or actually you've got retirement and then you've got group insurance. Group insurance is going to go up a little bit. Kathy has elected to, as a part-time employee, we'll pay half of her health insurance, and so she's electing to take health insurance from the city of Bastrop or the EDC, and so that's going to go up. We'll pay for half of it. She'll pay for the other half as a part-time employee. When finance prepared that number for us, they didn't know that at the time. Then you're looking at workers' compensation at $460, and then you're looking at the executive director's auto allowance at $6,000, for a total of what we consider administrative cost of $312,170, or a little less than 14% of expenses over total revenue. Any questions on that? And you can kind of see the comparison where we've been in previous years.
Is there any reason, Sean, why the 6K didn't show up on 15, 16 projected?
There is actually so the way the city of Bastrop now does our payroll, they actually had to create a department of the city, and so when they've been allocating that, they didn't allocate it to the auto allowance, they allocated it to operational salaries. So in the department of the city, it's allocated to auto allowance, but when they charge us for it, they weren't charging it to auto allowance, and since we were halfway through the year by the time we caught it, we actually just transferred that money up into operational salaries. My preference would be, because it is treated as operational salaries, if we can convince the finance department to do that again. It's clean, it's easy, it's simple, is to move that $6,000.
So it's in the 212,560.
It is, that $6,000 is in the 212,560, that's correct. And we've already done the line item budget transfer to move that up there because of the way they were accounting for it this year. Yep, good question. Any questions on the first page?
So that means then that the operational salaries are really going to go up about
$30,000. And I think staying in that 15% of revenue is a safe spot for us to be operational salary wise. Yes, ma'am?
You can hear one.
No. So on the second page, this is what we consider operations, those things that we need to run the office. And mine's a little bit different than y'all's, and so y'all will have to bear with me. I actually have some detail on mine that is hidden on y'all's, so if you have questions, I can answer them. The office lease, the conversations we've had about the office, it should stay the same as far as our lease rate at $3,000 a month. We're still confirming the option, but they've indicated that that's not going to change. Operational supplies is going up a little bit. We're finding that we're going to need a little bit more general office supplies with some of the programs that we're going to run next year. So that works out to be about $7,000 a year in just general operational supplies. Postage is going down slightly to $360. We just don't mail a lot of stuff. It is what it is. Looking at office equipment, that number does jump up, but I will go through the detail with you. We're looking at acquiring one additional desktop scanner. We possibly will need one additional replacement desktop or computer. We have 3 iPads and tablets budgeted. We just don't know until next year when the board turns over what we're going to need there in that spot.
I'm not arguing with this, and more computers, upgrades, I understand, but doesn't this thing scan?
Yes, it does, but it doesn't scan.
Can't send it to a computer?
It does scan it to my computer, but it doesn't scan it in the correct format that we need it in for document storage.
Okay.
So like we've been trying to take all of our old documents, like our old minutes and things like that from the very beginning, scan them, need them to be searchable, and that does not allow it to be searchable.
Yeah, it's an OCR scanner as well.
Okay.
And they're $300. We have one currently, and we're going to want to add another one. TV monitors and or TVs, projectors, and monitors at $1,000 in that. AV equipment at $2,000. One of the things that we have found is Gene is a very capable photographer, and buying some additional photography equipment saves us on hiring professional photographers. And so that's makes us just a little bit more functional in-house. 1,000 or 2,000 in general and other type of office equipment. So that's how we get to the 10,200.
So I'm assuming you got an offset somewhere in your marketing budget or something like that.
We just won't use marketing dollars for photography. That is really what it works out to be. And we still come in on the total over/under at almost $50,000 less than what our expenses are this year. So,
Will the small equipment and tools roll off next year?
yes,
We're just holding
it's because it showed into that one line item back in whatever FY 12-13, I believe that was. Maintenance of equipment at $1,000. When something breaks around here, we go get it fixed. Building repairs and maintenance at $3,600. That includes things like cleaning our office on a weekly basis. Is the big expense there. That's about $2,400 of that $3,600. Communications, we're actually hoping to be able to lower the communications bill. We are working on putting our fiber antenna back up on the roof. And so we will have, as long as our landlord is acceptable, we're going to put our fiber antenna back up and connect up with the police department and the city's fiber ring. And so our Time Warner cable bill will go down considerably. We are having some phone issues now with 4 people on there, our voice over IP, and so we need to get back on the city's fiber ring and get back on that connection. And we didn't know if we were going to stay this long or not to go to the trouble of mounting that antenna on the roof. But that works out. Those are not only our local number, but our metro number, voice over IP charges, AT&T for our phones and data plans, and the Time Warner cable. And there's a little bit of money in other, $600 in other, just in case I made a mistake or somebody has a rate increase, gets us to $11,550. Utilities go down to $4,680. That's all on the premise that we part ways with 903 Main Street, and we no longer have to pay the water and electric bill and gas bill down at 903. Property insurance is estimated currently for TML at $1,200 for next year. I always have to give this explanation on dues, subscriptions, and publications because that is always a big number. Ours is, when you think of city departments, dues and subscriptions, publications get spread out across a lot of departments. Ours ends up all inside of one organizational budget. So when you look at our memberships, all of our memberships to the different associations that we are in there, our subscriptions are all in there, and the few publications that we have are all included within that. And you see the subtotals for those as the blue numbers on the left. Any questions about dues, subscriptions, and publications?
Where do you have your travel budget?
It's in marketing.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
It's coming up.
It's coming up.
Thank you.
Bonds for BEDC officers at $1,000. Y'all seem to all appreciate having that protection.
Yes.
And then Opportunity Austin is our membership into the Regional Marketing Association that the Austin Chamber runs. And so that totals out to be $97,874, or 4.38% of expenses to revenue, which is right in line with where we've been the last few years. Advertising and marketing. You'll see some mark-throughs on some of the cost codes on the left. As we did last year, and we're going to continue to do this year and probably for the foreseeable future, we're trying to make the descriptions more reflective of how we use them. And so 5603, what used to be marketing travel trips, is just marketing travel, is how we're hoping finance will allow us to change it. That jumps up to $12,000, business development at $10,000, and then training travel at $10,000.
Because
We'll have both Angela and Jean going to OUEDI next budget year for advanced economic development training. So, and that the travel not only includes the travel to get to the training, but it also includes the registration for the coursework. The billboards, hallelujah, our billboard at 71 and 95 has come down. We do not expect it to go back up for at least 18 months while construction is ongoing at that intersection. And so we've been able to reallocate the balance of that budget this year, as well as, which I really check those numbers because we did reallocate some money. And so we're not expecting that expense next year. Local and miscellaneous advertising sponsorship stays the same at $15,000. Think of that as things that occur within Bastrop when we have to run an ad in the advertiser or a public notice in the advertiser that gets charged there. Legal notices, advertising in local publications. Think of that $15,000.
Are you suggesting that this 13,000 would increase 15,000?
No.
Okay.
It moves into the exit line items that we're going over. So
all these guys?
Yep. So one of the things that we've gone through and done, and we're looking at our marketing budget more as regional, state advertising and marketing, our national advertising and marketing, digital advertising and marketing, and then what used to be special project advertising and marketing hasn't been used, and neither the digital or the special have been used in the history that's on here, but they were already cost codes that were relatively close to what we were doing. So we're looking at $15,000 in regional state advertising, national advertising at $50,000, digital advertising and marketing at $10,000, and then special advertising and marketing at $12,000.
An example of what that would be.
Of special advertising. We decide that we want to run a special recruiting campaign related to a target industry that's not covered in any of the others. We all of a sudden get hot and heavy into bio and life science recruiting, and we want to go target those bio and life science, that one cluster that we have, and expanding that. And so we go out and do direct marketing to those guys. And most everything we do now is direct marketing. We buy 2 print publications a year, one in the Austin Chamber Guide for Opportunity Austin, and one in Texas Wide Open, which is the Governor's Magazine. Beyond that, print advertising for EDCs is very ineffective. This is a personal selling 101 game, and it really is about directly targeting the industries you want to be in and getting in front of those decision makers. And so we've got a very aggressive campaign plan between now and the end of the year, between Gene and I getting out and getting in front of more decision makers, site consultants, site brokers, and opportunities that are available to us, primarily through our regional partners and our state partners that are already putting on events. For us to go and do that on our own, you can look at a price tag that's 2 to 3 times for us to put some of those and participate in some of those events. Yes, sir.
You know, as we're catching up, finish you first.
I've known you long enough that when you leaned back and looked me in the eye, that would gave it away.
I just wanted to say to the board that these are big numbers, and when he rolls out with what he's talking about right now, like he wants to go to, to a specific industry and do some special advertising with them and or reach out to them in any other way, he's going to explain all that to us about the program.
Right.
So we're not just looking at these numbers going, okay, we're blessed in this, and he's going to carte blanche and do all those things. He's going to be talking about these line items. So we have this in this line item. This is exactly what I was telling you when we reviewed the budget. This $15,000, we're going to use 9 of it to go do X, Y, and Z.
Oops. One of the things,
Here's some details.
So there'll be a defense of an extra $47,000.
there will be, one of the things you're going to hear next week, Mike Barnes is coming out to give a review of the strategic plan that he helped redevelop last year. One of the things that we've found in the course of this year is we need a virtual building program in which we go and have 3D renderings done and cost estimates done for virtual buildings in the park, so that whenever we get an RFP response from a company going, we need 40,000 square feet of flex space. What's it going to cost in Bastrop, Texas? What we know in the last year of turning the recruiting program on, when you look at other programs in the region, they can actually give them hard numbers of what that physical space is going to cost, both at cost to construct as well as build a suit leaseback space. And so we have a test building right now that we'll be sending the information off tomorrow. We've got a long enough lead time on this one. We don't have to respond until the end of the month. And so we've got 2 weeks to put into site ops what that site plan is going to look like, and then get a construction estimate and a lease estimate for the prospect to be able to say, to be in Bastrop, Texas, it's going to cost you X number of dollars to build your facility based on the specs you gave us.
Who actually exercises that model? Comes up with the numbers?
We've got a commercial contractor that is willing to do their part of it on a gratis side of it, and they also have the ability to reach out to investors if it comes to fruition, to be able to raise the money to construct it, and then do it if it's a lease back, the build and hold and lease it back to the client. Eric Davis, who was here a couple weeks ago within economic development, has quite a few contacts within that world that do build-to-suit leasebacks for economic development corporations across the state. So there's investor groups out there that specifically work with EDCs on this type of
Or are you suggesting this for an industrial park or land that we would own at some point?
all of the above. Initially, it will be the land in the industrial park on the sites that we currently have that are shovel-ready or near shovel-ready. What other EDCs have done successfully, and I don't know that it would work here with Bastrop, is to help with the land planning stage of it. But normally, there's an agreement from the landowner signing a contract for a guaranteed price or a guaranteed offer number, so that there's no risk us go out and invest X number of dollars, and based on the price today, 18 months from now, they change the price of the land because somebody all of a sudden decided to look at it. You see that more in rural communities where they're able to tie that up. You don't see it as much unless there's a professional land developer on the property in a community, an urban, suburban, whatever designation you want to call us, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense though. If you think of a good example. Somebody has a tract of land, it's 5 acres, they come to us and we're able to sign an agreement, they're gonna hold the price for 5 years at X number of dollars, they're perfectly happy with that. Then we can step in and go, here's what a virtual building on this site would look at, because the developer then has a cost basis in which they can base that on, and they don't have to worry about 36 months from now it changing.
When we actually do that virtual building structure, which is comes within this budget.
Right.
How do we get that virtual building built? Who's the professional who exercises the models and creates the buildings?
There are companies out there that do that as part of these programs.
You talk about a design build?
Basically be a design building, and then they would actually contract directly with the company, but it allows us to provide a cost basis for them. And there are design build contractors that specialize in commercial industrial spaces for build-to-suit and build-to-suit leasebacks.
So with this money, we're supporting that effort for a design build
Correct.
potential.
Correct.
Well worth it.
Yeah, and it's really on a 921 Main. Those 3D renderings that you saw that we did for that, it's the same type of concept, except there's a site plan tied to it in a tighter construction budget. We spent all of $1,170 having that virtual building drawn up. So it's not necessarily expensive. It's when you get into doing multiple virtual buildings for a site, because there's some flexibility on it. You look at the one we're getting ready to do is going to be a flex building. So it'll have office and then flex space in the back of it. But we could very well go in there and do straight office space on that same site and have 2 or 3 offerings depending upon what the RFP is asking for on each side. So we may have 4 virtual buildings for the same site of 4 different uses. And we only send out the one that is relative to the project. And that's where the dollars get involved. Is you spend $2,000 on a virtual building, but you may have 3 or 4 virtual buildings done based on what your demand is that you're looking at.
So you're not talking about spec space, you're talking about someone that wants to come in
Yep.
and have a building that they want to bring a business to, and perhaps even some additional space because it's more economical to build.
And what
Build a larger space.
This is just kind of an example.
what we continue to see from our client load is most of them want to be leasees. They don't want to own the building. For whatever reason, the companies are not, they would rather have a design, build to suit to them, and then lease it back. So,
So, I mean, so they're at least, they're going to be
correct.
lessees. We would own the building?
No, the developer. Ultimately, the company would select.
We're not going to get into real estate
It's
business.
us just getting the businesses here.
Yeah, it just provides us a pricing structure for what the business wants to.
We're not going to be the landlord.
We're not going to be the landlord. Unless we want to.
Well, again, that rolls back to, really getting into the details of the minutiae of these deals, because it's, we want to
Again,
be careful we don't get into something there.
we never want to be competing with private enterprise. And the company always has the choice to select the builder of their choice. All this does for them is provide them a cost basis for doing business in Bastrop, Texas. They may still go out and look at 3 different design build companies. It just happened to be that we're going to partner with one that will be able to provide a general cost structure of what it costs to construct that style building in Bastrop, Texas.
So we'll spend these dollars to get them in the door, and if they're gonna have somebody, a developer build a building for them, this will entice them to get them here, and then they'll be there on the
Correct.
We're an employee.
Facilitators.
Yeah, and that's really what we're, you see the same thing Footerville's doing at Met Center up 71. That's generally what they're doing is virtual buildings and being able to sell or pre-lease those buildings before they construct them. When we look at the projects that we could have been or should have been competitive for and we lose them, it's to communities that either have existing spec space or they have a developer or the EDC has gone out into the virtual building world and can show them the cost structure of the real estate here in their community, in our case, Bastrop. So it's where we see, it's when we do an RFP response, it's where we see that we're not making a short list on projects that we think we should be.
So many people can't visualize it. So a pretty picture, oh, look, there's Buc-ee's.
It's basically another marketing tool in the RFP, is what it's.
So we don't have that now.
We do not.
We have it on a limited basis, but we don't have the cost structure for it. We've gone out and site planned some sites, but we don't have the cost structure of what it would cost to construct those buildings.
The other thing that this does as well is since we don't have kind of that packaged incentive process, until we get all of the data to be able to put that together, this gives us kind of another way in that, okay, here per, the information that you've provided us, this is what your building would look like and here's what the cost structure would be. So it's still providing them with information that can help them kind of negotiate their incentives and talk about what that would look like in the bigger picture. So just from a marketing perspective, marketing Bastrop as a whole and marketing the industrial park, it's just another really good tool for us to have.
We don't have
to provide.
We don't have enough available real estate on the ground, developed buildings that are vacant, especially for our type A primary job recruiting, and that's what we're specifically talking about. We're not talking about retail, we're not talking about professional services outside of a primary job. We're talking about primary job recruiting here, specifically in the virtual building program. That think manufacturing, industrial space, commercial space, warehousing space, distribution assembly space. And even to some degree, we may use a portion of it for office space for 20,000 square foot or 10,000, 12,000 square foot user that's going to have our office space in Bastrop, and we're getting ready to undertake sometime next year, late, depending on which quarter's slow, an inventory of available office space to see what's out there. But we're typically, what we're hearing is 200 square feet per employee is the number, and we just don't have a lot of that space available again. So
This is not a new thing. I mean, 20 years ago, I remember putting stuff together like this because it's not just reaching that market. They use that tool internally to sell their company. And again, if you've got something visual, you've got some numbers,
It's that
it
takeaway.
becomes real.
Yeah, it's that takeaway that you can go and share with their board as well.
And I can look at a site plan and understand what's going to be built there. Most people cannot look at a 2D site plan and understand what's going to be built there. They need that 3D rendering of here's what our building is going to look like. So, total for advertising, marketing and advertising, we're at $134,000 or 6% of revenue. That's by law, we're allowed to do up to 10%. That 6% range seems to be a healthy annual number to be using for marketing and advertising. And I think from what we've heard from the community is they want us to be more aggressive. We've been more aggressive the last year, but even more aggressive than we are now. And this the marketing budget, as we've looked at it, is going to allow us to do that.
This is a dip, that would be 5%.
Yes, sir. And it's probably got some numbers after it. We'll get that fixed. Any other questions there? Moving on, professional services at $66,300. You're going to see a jump here, and I'll go through the line items. We use a contract graphic designer and copywriter out of Dallas for marketing services, as well as we're getting ready to add another specialized contract graphic designer. I'm going to interview her tomorrow out of Dallas. We've gone direct to the folks that perform the work, and all of the marketing pieces that y'all seen come out of this shop have been done with this team. That's about, their services right now are estimated about $12,000. ED Suite, which is our website, our licensing and hosting, is $2,700. The billboard money that we had, we'll have to make a correction on here somehow. Angela and I both missed it. The billboard money that we had remaining is actually going to a website refresh right now. We're refreshing our website and adding some modules to it. So we no, it's like $5,000.
The remaining of this year's.
This year's. So that's why we don't have a refresh in our website for next year, just the licensing, because we already got that up ongoing with some savings that we had. Executive Pulse is our CRM software at $3,000. Retail Coach for their work for us. Between the split type of work they do for us, the analysis reports and mapping, and then also the recruiting services, it's a separate contract. They'll be somewhere in that $15,000 range. We have a company out of Dallas that does lead generation for us at $5,000. We are going to add access to Ezra data, site to do business, which is run through CCIM, which is a real estate broker's designation for commercial real estate agents, is $1,600. The modeling software, our annual fee, the economic impact modeling software, is $3,000. And currently we're holding, this is where if we need to do some type of study or have some type of specialty economic impact analysis done, there's $24,000 in other professional services, and that's how we get to the $66,300. Any question on professional services? Okay.
Yeah, you have a detail sheet on these, do? Yeah, I just like that.
I was just thinking the same thing. Some of these, it doesn't matter, but that's actually, you know, something more great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it'd be good reference.
We will provide it to you.
Thank you.
Some of them confuse y'all, and some of them, we don't want to give you too much information to confuse you, and that's one that I completely understand why you
Give
want.
us too much. We're brilliant.
Okay, that side of the table was saying that.
I can give you too much, and it
Just-
will confuse you.
I did. I was like, okay.
You don't like the utility calculations. I break it down by every bill and what our average monthly charge is, and
Yeah, I don't need that. I do have a question. Why did it jump so?
Yeah, but
Why did it jump up? Like, I know it wasn't, you weren't here. Is that a big?
The housing study would come out
Oh,
of
okay.
that line.
Is that why it was like 95,000?
The multifamily study came out of that line item. So anytime we've done those specialty type of studies, that's where they get charged. If we decide to do some type of labor shed analysis, we would come back and do a budget amendment, put it in there. We've been talking about.
That's where those big
Yeah.
jumps were with those
Yep.
heavy
Very-
studies that we did.
Very specific studies as professional services. This is more base, everyday operating kind of stuff. Legal at 30,000, which I think is a fairly safe number at the moment. Engineering at 15,000, and then contractual services is always our favorite. That is our portion of the lease on the Kershaw parking lot downtown. And then that brings y'all to $117,300 or
Hey, Mark, did we
5.25%.
stay within our legal budget this last year?
Oh, yeah.
We did. Was enough to bring in our extra?
We're safe in where we're at legal wise.
Where's the commercial part?
It is at Pine and Water Street, across from the courthouse. The county and the city split that lease 3 ways. It's 18,000 annually, and our share of that
That's
is.
that little teeny corner.
Just a little extra. That's where we have it, yeah.
There's probably a couple dozen parking spaces in there,
So it's like 32?
32.
something like
And we pay
that.
6,000 a year, and that's a portion of it?
Yeah, it's 18,000 annually.
I should have bought that dollars for sale.
So should we.
I was thinking of buying it, renting out those spaces, but I think too long sometimes.
You have plenty of parking.
Not me, but the courthouse did, and I thought, okay, I might be able to take an extra day off, you know, but pretty parking spaces.
It's one of those that I just scratch my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to city projects and support, contracts for service is
Well,
basically,
talk about that for a minute. Why are we paying for the parking?
We don't park there anymore,
we didn't park at the beginning, we had 2 spaces in the other park that was
but why do
fine.
you still pay there?
It really
Is
is,
this where we're just being a good neighbor to the city?
really and truly in the
The
county.
city and the
So
county.
how long is that contract?
It's an annual contract year to year
Forever?
until somebody decides they don't want to pay
If you're
for
going to
it.
terminate at the end of any year, you can terminate.
Yep.
12-month terms.
And it starts in November.
Sounds
I
right.
believe that's right, because last year we didn't budget
All
enough
of us
money.
paid $6,000?
Yes.
Damn, that's like $1,000 a parking space. No, $1,000.
Well, I mean, you're
It
limited.
should be meter.
Yeah, it
Put a
should be.
meter in their quarters.
Yeah, I mean,
Start ticking after 10 minutes. Anyway.
On city projects and support, on the next page, the City of Bastrop contract for services, that is, this is one where they actually bill us on a monthly basis. It's basically park service, mowing. We used to pay for 2 parks employees, now they just bill us for their hours that they actually go out and do maintenance work for us. What you always have to remember here is we not only maintain the entrance to the industrial park, but we maintain the 71 right-of-way that TxDOT does not maintain. The EDC agreed when the city wanted grass instead of whatever was going to go out there.
so
Yeah.
bookends.
Yep, and then the bookends around town, we pay for those as well. We're currently running under budget this year, but that is all related to the rains, and we don't really have a year over year to compare this to. But with the rains in May, our bill was off significantly because they just couldn't get the hours.
Well, let's talk about this. When we talked about it last year, and we said, okay, we'll do that. Number, again, we're a good neighbor for the city, and we can certainly do it for less and probably more efficiently if we get it all.
Correct.
Do we want to continue being a good neighbor, or do we want to actually own this?
I was thinking, it really doesn't always look that great, but I didn't.
Well- Correct.
They maintain the one we can see really well because they know we can see.
Well, I go the other way by the theater. That one doesn't.
My suggestion is that since we are where we are at this point in time, the city is where it is, and it's budgeted at this point in time, that we leave it in here until we get a new city manager, and then have the discussion far in advance of budget preparation.
I would agree. I think the new city manager is key here.
And I think we need a full year of what they're going to cost. I mean, because right now we're only 9 months into this, and once we get to the end of this budget year, we'll have a 12-month comparison sometime at
Will be a wet year.
sometime at the end of the second quarter next year. We probably need to look at that 18 months that we've got billings for. Because if we decide we are going to send it out for bid, we're going to need to engage an engineer to kind of develop the plans and specs and scope of what we're actually doing.
Well, we're not really.
So we can describe it.
Yeah, we're not controlling the quality of what we're getting. We're really just giving them some money to cover their labor costs.
And it,
And equipment.
my opinion for what it's worth is that it looks pretty good.
We don't want it to go unmaintained, that's for
Right.
sure.
It's working now, but
I think
we
we can,
discuss it in the future.
from a,
Every year we visit it.
from a staff perspective, I think we need 12 months of billings to know exactly what they're going to bill us this year. And then if we decide we do want to go out, we're going to have somebody clearly define what we are responsible for and what we're not. So.
Plus remember, once you leave, you may not be able to go back. So, you know, once you get a subcontractor or somebody to do it, the city, and you don't like it, the city might not want to make a deal with it again, so.
And they provide shredding services for us in the park. We've just now, we'll send over X number of lots. I sent over 3 last month for them to mow in the park, and they went out and shredded those for us. We'll send a couple more over this month. And so that bulk mowing that we have out there that's not covered in this contract also gets paid out of this, and they do it with a smile.
That's what I say, we're, mutual relationship might not be.
Finding a shredder to go shred that, I don't know how
It may
easy
be
or how
some
hard it would be.
hybrid.
Real, there was a time when Bernie County was, nobody wants to rent those out anymore because they're expensive to fix, and they're easy to break, you know.
Well, and I can tell you, it got a little out of hand for us down there across the street from Genco. We checked it one week, it was knee high, and by the next week, it was 6 foot tall.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
crazy.
I mean, it
Unusual here.
that sun came out, and it took off. I was like, ooh. And we were actually trying to show it to a client. I mean, I was embarrassed that but we checked it not too long before that, and it was still showable in a matter of a week. It was bad.
This is not a big ticket item, but let's remember when we do come and revisit this, and that's the liability that the city is accepting by doing this. Fires, whatever you might get into with this.
So then we have City of Bastrop, or the Main Street program support at $40,000. Sarah and us have a really good working relationship. I don't see any reason at this point to revisit our support of the Main Street program. City administrative support is the other line.
Does the grant program umbrella under there, if that gets straightened out, or is that on a separate?
It's on a separate line item.
Okay, thank you.
It's under EDC projects and grants. Then city administrative support, that $50,000 is the other one last year that we took a look at, and they bill us for their billable hours in the various departments. Think finance, IT, HR. We get a little bit of billing from the city manager's office, some billing from the planning department. But those are those things outside of mowing that are more administrative tasks. I think we're going to be under budget there for this year, but again, we don't have a full year of billings for that to really compare it to, and so we're playing it safe in next year's budget. So that ends up being $229,000, or what will be 10.25% of revenue. Any questions on city project support? Okay. Moving on. So one of the things, and I know Steve and I individually have talked about it, and Christy and I individually have talked about it. The resource committee for the Chamber of Commerce asked me to scratch my head on this and think about when we have natural disasters, could we put together a relief fund for businesses that are affected by natural disasters? And I put in this budget $10,000, and we'll have to come back with a full-blown program, but think of it this way. Think of 903 Main Street, it's flooding, our roof starts leaking, and a business makes an application to the program for $500, $1,000 to have the roofer immediately be able to come out and tarp the roof. They pay for it, and we reimburse them administratively through the program. It's the way I see it being set up, so they don't have to come to the board, but we're able to provide quick disaster relief money or reimbursement money. Think of somebody that gets flooded out, a business. We're only talking about businesses here. We're not talking about residences. Somebody that needs to come in and cut the sheetrock out and needs a dumpster. And we've exhausted all of the other supplies of disaster relief dumpsters, and a dumpster is going to run us somewhere $650, $1,000, and so they would get a dumpster. They apply for the grant, and we reimburse them for that dumpster because they were affected by.
I'm not opposed to it. I think it's good policy. It fits within what we want to do. But it's been, what, 2 years, something like that? We still haven't gotten the facade grant business straightened out, and this is another one that could just sit there for a while. But Sarah's motivated.
Sarah's motivated on that, and she will have that probably by the end of this budget year. She's made her proposal to us. We have it internally as staff. There's a couple areas that we're not agreeable to that we're going to kick back, and she'll rework them for
We're
us.
talking about here that, that maybe they have a large deductible or something like that. This could kind of help fill that gap. Because ordinarily, you'd have business insurance that's going to cover that.
Potentially, yes. And when the money's gone, the money's gone. I wouldn't think that we'd come back to the board, but those, the examples that the resource committee used for us, the KOA needed a dumpster in the Memorial Day flood last year, and it was $650 for that dumpster to go be able to deliver it down there. And the dumpsters that was provided by the waste hauler, the gratis dumpsters, had been exhausted by the time they needed their dumpster. To get them back up and operating, get them cleaned up, and get them moving down the road. Whether we like it or not, Lee Harrell's dock last Memorial Day flooding down the river, getting him back up and operating and putting boats in the river is critically important to our tourism business in Bastrop. Somebody like us at 903 that found out the roof was leaking and needed to get up there and patch it real quick and needed a roofer insurance deductible for somebody that gets water flowing through their business, and just anything that we can do to help during these disasters.
Now, is this like a big disaster, like the Memorial Day flood, or just a single business that something happened to that business without, being a national disaster?
I would think that it would need to be one that there was a disaster declaration made.
Okay, that's why I was just curious whether it's just a guy down the street. Yeah, it might seem flooded or whichever.
No, and it's one that, and we'll have to decide at what level. Is it one that Judge Poppy declares a disaster at the county level? Is it one that the state of Texas has declared Bastrop County or the affected area disaster? Or do we go all the way to the point that did it get a FEMA declaration and we step in? I think those are all things to be debated.
Again, these are those individual deals, that we'll have to take a look at, whether or not it's a disaster.
And hopefully we put the money in the budget and we don't have disaster next year. It's still sitting there.
It's a great little.
We don't have to spend it, right?
That's right. This is one of those just in case. And we really think something that the board has approved, the application has been approved, and we administratively administered it in here. They fill out the application, they meet all the criteria for it. It never comes back to the board. We report back at the end of the year. We did X, Y, and Z, and we see if we like the program or not. That way we can have a quick turnaround, because y'all meet once a month, and we don't want to slow down being able to do this.
But if the mom and pop burned down or half of it burned up, it wouldn't qualify.
It's something to think about.
Because Fisherman's Park floods quite often, whether it's a national flood or not. And so like his dock would flood and it wouldn't actually be a national flood. So I was just curious,
Well, that's where we'll work out the details later.
I just wondered if those are the
Those are all
details
things that we're going to have to work out.
Oh, okay.
If in general concept y'all want to have a
Concept,
disaster,
I like it.
Yeah, in concept, I'd like to see it continue with.
And it's
the
good
details.
PR for us, little outreach.
It's basically a contingency fund for those kinds of events. I guess that's what we describe it.
So the next one on there is $50,000 for the redevelopment grant program. Sarah is working on that, and she's made a proposal to us as staff. We're going to go back with comments to her here in the next week or two. And we think we've got a framework here worked out that we're both agreeable to. We're going to cap those, it looks like, at $10,000, which saves a ton of paperwork. They will not require they'll still require board approval, but they will not, at $10,000, do not require the public hearing, and they won't require the 2 readings of the city council beyond that of the budget. So instead of the 25% or 25,000 up to 100,000, we really, Kaylee agreed with this whenever she was still here, and when Sarah got here and we explained what we were working on, she agreed that the $10,000 number is a reasonable number, and then there's no limit on the number of years that a business would be eligible for. You think of a Main Street business that has $10,000 match on the front facade of the building, but yet then they also have alley access that is significant to that business. They could turn around and do the alley the next year for another $10,000 match. So for a total of $40,000 over 2 budget cycles.
This is kind of like that facade thing.
This is geared more toward facades and ADA and not tenant finish out type of things inside. If you've got a building and they want to finish it out for a restaurant and it's never been a restaurant before, that's not our place to step in there and do the tenant finish out on it. So. And it's also available to all of Bastrop. So.
Not just the downtown corridor.
Yep, think of what Vitology did, think of what HT Fitness did over here. Those are going to be key corridors into downtown at some point. I mean,
Just key businesses.
Those 2 buildings look 100% better than they did a year ago. And so it opens them up. Angela, help me out, the hotel down here that's historical, that's outside of the Main Street.
Historical?
Yeah, or the old,
Talking about the
Tropicana.
Tropicana?
Yeah.
I don't know about it being
I was gonna say, I know it's historical, but it's.
Yes. Historical, definitely.
But they're outside the Main Street district. If they could come in to paint and fix it up and be eligible to apply for.
Well, if they did, I'd vote for them to have more.
And this doesn't mean that somebody that's going to do a major project in Bastrop on Main Street, they can't come in and ask for a separate project. This is just making the program a little bit easier to administer on our part, making it a little bit easier on the application side of it. It's going to be more, there's going to be a scoring criteria. You either score the minimum amount of points or you don't. It's not going to be it's not going to be subjective anymore. It's going to be, here's the criteria, and you get 10 points because you're meeting this, or you get 0 points because you didn't meet it. If you don't meet the minimum score, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So I think that program, when it comes out, is going to be good. So we expanded education and workforce development last year, and we've had a lot of success in that. $10,000 there. We've separated the youth career day and the job fair. We did meet today about the job fair on October 1st, which is in next year's budget cycle. And then the youth career day in the spring with the 2 high schools. That also supports any other programs, education workforce development that we want to do. But it's got to be directly tied to education workforce development and our mission there. Business retention and expansion. This is really one of our key programs. We've been pulling money from BRE out of other budget line items that are related to it, but we'd like to have a special line item just. Did I?
Yeah, the entrepreneur and small business. Right? Isn't that under workforce?
Oh, you're right.
I'm
sorry.
I was just making sure my glasses were on right.
Hold on. No, you're confusing me. Oh, you're right, I did skip down. So, education, workforce development, entrepreneurial and small business, and then business retention and expansion. We're asking for $10,000 in each of those specialized categories. And think of them just as what they are: education, workforce development, job fair, small business entrepreneurial and small business is our programs related to that. We hosted the SBDC. We're going to help the chamber with their SBDC disaster preparedness workshop coming up in September.
Just out of curiosity, are we a major contributor when we're partnering, or are we a?
It depends upon what it is. Like the job fair, we're going to probably be in for about thirds. The city of Bastrop is providing the convention center gratis. We're providing the marketing dollars behind it. Now, the chamber is going to charge for their participation in it, but that's going to go for paying for the pipe, drape, and those other things associated with it. So we end up splitting the Youth Career Day is one that we really bear all of the expense on it because there's no other partners that have funds to put into that. The school district puts the building in, the chamber helps recruit businesses for it, and then we pay for the marketing and advertising. We were lucky enough to receive a grant this year for the speaker. We got $5,500 in grant money back for that total project from Texas Workforce Solutions, and so we were really able to expand that program to include the speakers.
I remember they used to use the example on the convention. Can we expect that again?
You never know.
Should we be budgeting for that also, or do we pull that for the contingency center?
No, we've got it covered. If we don't have to use all the $10,000 in education and workforce development, we won't, but we've got enough to do the Youth Career Day, and we've got enough to do the adult job fair right there.
All right.
380 agreements jump up to $329,000. That's the Buc-ee's reimbursement and then Burleson Crossing. Looking at their numbers right now, finance thinks it's $329,000. I had it a little bit higher, but we're going with finance's number for the moment. That's our sales tax rebate to those guys. Property rights funding is, we will be in the third year of the $600,000 that we're contractually obligated to fund the city of Bastrop for water development. And then type A projects incentives, our rebates next year are $49,205. That's an interesting line item. There's a reason there's a box around it. Because of the way we do our incentive agreements, or all the incentive agreements that are on the books for type A projects, we actually require the company to write us a check at closing, and then we rebate back their money. And so we actually carry on our balance sheet a liability that we're holding basically escrow money for them. And so it's not coming out of operating revenues, it's actually coming out of escrow funds. And so when you look at fund balance for us, it's actually subtracted out of fund balance because we're already holding the money in escrow, and we've already charged it against the expense account for the incentive. And so it's not a cash hit to us. And so projects and grants, $528,205 or 23.04% of budget. Any questions on those?
Yes, how long is the 380 agreements for? How much longer do we have on those?
I've got a chart built out to when I think they'll pay out. They were all 10-year agreements. They're going to pay out basically 6.5, 7 years, 7.5 years is what it's looking like at their current amounts.
How many years?
Probably another 4 or 5 years on both of them, depending upon what the economy does. I can get the
Oh, no, that's good. That's good enough. Ballpark figure.
It was before you came on the board. I actually did a presentation on what those look like, but we've got those numbers.
Clarification.
Yes, sir.
Water rights prop funding.
Proposition.
That's $6 grand. That's not the well.
We're not directly tied to the well. We're just funding water.
Funding the city.
Yes, we're funding water development at the city of Bastrop. I've been asked that.
This is total here. Just have to fix that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I want to make that clear to everybody, and I actually have the contract pulled. I had to read it today because of 10 years, 600,000. I actually had
10 years, and we're in this will be year 4,
to beat year 3.
year 3, and then we're out.
Then we have 7 more after this.
Okay.
It is what it is. Under infrastructure projects, I brought this to the board a couple meetings ago. 180,000 it's in the left-hand column on the next page.
That's the sidewalk?
Yes, that highlighted part is 180,000 because it's a capital improvement project. I haven't included it in the operating budget, but I do want to be able to show that if we do want to move forward, we think that's going to cost about $180,000. So, and it will go in the budget at some point if the board wants it to, but right now I'm really just going over the operating budget of what we're talking about.
That's why, just as an aside, I don't think it'd be appropriate to talk about it during this budget process, but I looked at the river finally went down. All of the revetments that were put in there to stabilize the high bank along the Hacking Bank Road are gone.
No.
And the bank is eroded to the point where the trail is about to fall into the river.
I'm afraid of every time it floods.
Yeah,
I mean, it floods
trail, since it's
several times a
flooded.
year.
I've been going down at neighbors and running.
But those revetments were put in probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, I remember them going in.
And they lasted a long time. The river was up so long this time.
A lot in the last 5 years.
Say again?
It's been up a lot of times in the last 5 years.
So who owns that? The city? Who's jurisdiction? We have a lot of pretty things here, and that kind of falls under there, but who should take first ownership?
I believe the city actually owns it. It was funded by, of course, Monmouth by LCRA, by the city, but I think the city owns it. But I thought
But
I'll
we
take
can't
it out.
let it go too long.
Yeah.
Well, put it on our little shopping list here.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty
Yeah.
critical. Yes. And I guess one thing, I mean, we have a whole lot of empty space here. We've given some money for some of these projects in the past.
Those are all funded projects that are complete.
They're all complete.
Yes.
Do we have anything on the whole, on the sidewalk improvements for Main Street?
That's actually on the city budget side. We funded $900,000 in 2013. It's held in a bond fund down there, and it's a city-run project. And so it
Should that
doesn't,
show up on
it
our?
doesn't show up on our funds.
How can it not?
It should only show, all we are is money in the deal. It shows up as an expense in the 2013 bond issuance that we're paying the debt on.
And where's that debt on?
It's in the next in debt service.
Where's the project? Just a little joke.
We're just, as I like to.
Send that joke over.
As I like to explain to everybody, at this point in time, until the city asks us otherwise, we're just a funding source and money in the deal.
All right, I'm good.
All right, debt service. So you were asking about the Main Street Improvement Project. That's that CO Series 2013 principal and interest. That's also the improvements for Janco and the industrial park was in that CO issuance. And that's our debt service related to that. We still have about $660,000 in bond money available in the park from that issuance. And we can come back and talk about that here in a minute.
Do we have a 10 hours to use that? Is that 10 hours or is it different?
It is that series. Generally speaking, we need to make a decision in the next budget cycle whether or not we're going to use that money or we're going to use it to reduce our principal reduction on it. The problem with that 650 is any of the projects that we're going to undertake in the park are considerably more expensive than $650,000. And we've looked at every which scenario you can look at in the park. The least expensive, unless we just go out and do lot grading, and there's 2 lots that I would like to grade that would be about $600,000. The lot by the jail and then the lot across the street from the Foundry. The project started at $1.2 million and go up, depending on what you end up doing. So it's one of those things that it seems like a lot of money until you start going in and putting in fire flow and streets and The 8.5 acres to the north of Dig Tech is going to have a regional detention pond. And to catch the water flowing off the hill, there's underground culverts that have got to be installed to flow that water that we're catching uphill from there. So, yes, there's just not a simple solution. Then you've got the 2010 series, and I would like to be able to tell you, I know what we spent all this money on, but I don't. I can always look it up though if you're interested. The 2014 is a refunding, and we're interest only at this point on that. It relates back to bond principal from 2008A, which you see down there that's marked through, but that's an interest only. It has to do with how they structured that debt when they refunded it. And refunding means they refinanced it. The 2008 CO that is that's kind of in the box. The defeasance on that is going to be about $350,000 plus what's in the box, and that's what the board agreed to a couple months ago to call that bond. And so at some point that 350 number will move over and get either come out of that 470 at the top or come out of fund balance, depending on how you look at it.
We're at 30-something%, 32 debt service.
Yeah.
How high is that? It's in the 30s.
For
Says 15.
we're going to be at about 15.45% before the defeasance.
Okay.
Now, I do have a question, sorry. On the bond for Main Street, that they, from 2013, did they have a time restraint? So does the city have a time restraint to do what they got the money to do?
What they have told us now is they don't have the same time constraint that we have. So they are in the planning stages for that project. We're hopeful that the new city manager will make that a high priority to get that project started and completed in a timely fashion. They have a very small window in which to construct that project, and it basically is right after the first of the year before spring break. Because you get outside of that window and you start disrupting business sales between spring break and then you get into Memorial Day and summer, and then Labor Day you get into Christmas sales. And so you've got about a 3-month window there at the first of the year.
I was just curious, like I say, if the city, and say it's 2020 and they still haven't done the sidewalks, do we ever get our $500,000 they bonded to that? I'm just wondering.
I'm sure they'll write us a check.
I'm just wondering, I'm just curious.
Okay, here's a confusion for me. When we go every week or every month, whenever we have our regular meeting, we go through our little pie charts and our little budget thing. I swear there's a big pie part that says 30-something% debt, and I thought it was a lot of the interest expense.
Well,
Is that balance sheet or?
that is actual expenses to date, and as you'll notice, we're budgeting to spend this year about $1.8 million, which means that there's $300,000 that is not showing up. And so when you take out that $300,000, it becomes a disproportionate. It changes it from what it actually was budgeted. I don't know that I explained that very
No,
well.
I didn't, but to be continued and maybe the next
So
time we go through the budget.
we're retiring $350,000
Correct.
of our bond debt.
Yes.
That's going away.
Yes.
And when we do that, that's gonna drive that 15%, that'll go to about 30%.
Yes, and it will for next year. And then it'll come back down into that 20% range, I think is where I'm projecting it to end up landing.
And you did a projection, Watts, on when these would
I
start
have.
dropping off.
I have there's the same meeting that with the budget, and I'll be glad to bring those two spreadsheets back, but we've got both the 380 agreement, well, actually we have one for all projects so that we can actually track, as we do incentive deals, we can see what the budget implications are going to be out some number of years, as well as on debt service.
When is this due to be retired?
I believe it will be February of 17 is when it becomes callable. But we'll have to bring a resolution to the board when you adopt the budget to actually authorize that, and our bond counsel, financial advisor are well aware that I'm going to need that.
Yeah, I mean, you've already gone through that group on them, so
Yeah.
I mean, they've recommended
Yes.
It'd be a good thing to do.
Because the city's already refinanced their portion of that debt. And they will actually call it at this about the same time that they've already issued the new debt and have escrowed those funds to call that. 2006 bond is drops down to $50,000. I had hoped to be able to call this one, but this one has a make whole provision, which means that we were going to pay the same amount today as we would 4 years from now when this one falls off, so there's no reason to actually call it early. Back when that bond was issued in 2006, that was pretty standard language for those bonds, was to have a make whole provision, which you're going to pay the whole amount no matter what. And you got a preferred interest rate for doing so. Yeah, no early repayment on that.
And what's the fiscal agent fees?
If we go out and issue new debt, it gets charged, even though it's part of the bond, it gets charged to fiscal aid. The portion of the bond that goes to pay our financial advisor or our counsel on that, it gets charged. And actually, I don't know that we're using physical agents anymore. If you look at the top line, 5610, debt issuance cost, that's the cost to issue debt.
Oh, I got you.
So you see that 6372, that is actually from the refunding of the 2008 bonds. It cost us $6,300 on the books that year.
So just drop from 20,000 to 9,000.
And so debt service is $345,000 next year, or 15.45% of projected revenues. And it's doing exactly what it was designed when I went out and issued the new debt in 2013, was it would drop back off in a couple of years. And right now, we have no money allocated to contingency or any type of miscellaneous expenses. So back to the first page, what you end up with in total expenses is $1.763,899. And so there's a spread between revenues and expenses of $470,901. When I brought the defeasance to the board, it was using fund to balance, and then the 180 would come out of as a capital expenditure. So we're real close with those two items in the budget of being completely balanced, but we still will have a very healthy fund balance at the end of the day for future projects. And with the IFC policy that's in place now for contingency transfers, I'll be honest, I would just put $0 in contingency, and if we need that money, we just run a budget amendment through the board, through the council, versus putting money in contingency.
That total still didn't have the sidewalk thing.
Correct. We end up right about 2.2 million and some change with both the defeasance and the 180 for the sidewalk in there. Because it was total 430,000 and we're at 470, so there's a little bit of money left over.
I like the structure of this because basically you don't have to go back to the city, every couple of months going, we kind of messed up on this line item and forgot about it, or it wasn't an issue at the time, but now we're kind of projecting forward and describing what we really think is going to happen here in a little bit more detail than we ever had before. I wouldn't say ever had before, but Sean, he and his staff do a lot better job of looking into the future, I think, and the needs. They've established what needs we have before we write down when past budgets and things like that. So I think they're doing a really good job of that.
Well, and the one thing we've tried to do this first year on the job is really get our operating expenses under control and get them focused in the areas that are going to pay the greatest dividend for our recruiting efforts. And that's one of the reasons you see our projected at 1.8, and you see our draft budget at 1.7. And you see more money going into marketing and advertising, but it's because we've gone in the other areas and really streamlined our operating expenses. And it helps that we've got increasing revenues coming into the corporation to do that, but we still try to be very frugal in what we're doing and how we spend the money here, because we understand that it's the public's money and we've got to be good stewards of it.
The presentation is well done, it's good.
As always, Sean, thank you.
It is one of the things that I enjoy doing is the budget. I know that's kind of scary. When I got here last year, we were starting budget cycling, and Angela was like, "Well, do you want me to do the budget?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's all me." She was so happy for me to take that back.
A little insight on it.
So we can, unless y'all have more discussion about the budget, we can close the workshop and go home.
I would like to say Mary has done a fine job covering the budget on Twitter.
Thank you.
I was watching, so it's all fun.
So much fun. It helps the budget process to be
And unless there's some change, I mean, obviously, we'll come back to the next board meeting next week, and we'll have an updated budget. We'll go through the line items if y'all want to. If everybody's agreeable with what we're proposing next week, we'll cancel the other budget workshop and bring the budget and the public hearing to the August meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
You gonna have a full house next time?
Yes, we should, yeah. Yeah, the DMO
That's
presentation.
exciting in itself.
Yeah.
The DMO presentation is going on at the City Hall. They scheduled that last week, a week ago, after we'd already set the budget workshop today. Cam was not able to rearrange his travel schedule. He's in Chicago doing his real job. And then Gary had to leave a day early to go wherever Gary's going. He let me know last week when I met with him.
And I went by the City Hall before I came here. The parking lot is full.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
there's a ton.
And this isn't, the DMO is an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
So,
we're taking all sorts of comments and stuff, so.
So I knew it wasn't our workshop. Newsflash.
so
Any motions that we need to take on the budget at this point? Okay.
not at this point, I just need you to close the workshop.
We're closing the workshop and we'll come back into regular session.
So unless there's some action y'all want to take on the budget, which I don't know of any, I don't have any need for an executive session. We will listen to 6.1 is any future agenda items that y'all may want us to consider or start working on prepping for the board. Other than that, we're at 7, which is adjournment.
Let me, I just was saying to Sean before the meeting that, you know, at one point, the mayor had asked us to get involved in some type of annexation initiative for the city, on behalf of the city. And Sean and I have discussed that, so I think that needs to, you know, in a future meeting. And Sean believes, and I tend to agree with him, that's more of a planning function from the city standpoint. I don't know, you know, if there's some funding mechanisms, funding that might be useful to the city at some point to help start some type of an initiative for annexation on their part or some planning. I don't know what it means at all. I just wanted to remind you that we had that conversation with it at one point in time. It's been months and months ago. So,
I forgot about that.
but anyway, I don't know that we have, you know, I don't know that we have a part to play in it at all. But
We
just
do
wanted to
not.
remind you.
But I came in on a spirited, well, relatively, conversation where they were talking about city wastewater and some things. And I wonder if this group, because of the people that we have on it, can offer some ideas to the city if they decide to do annexations.
One of the things that Steve has asked for outside of the meeting, and we'll deliver it, but I'll try to get a copy and get it out to everybody, is the draft land use plan that the comprehensive plan is working on. And they've come in and worked on that. I don't know that it's gone to the comprehensive plan steering committee, so if it hasn't, probably can't release it, but as soon as I can, I'll get that out to everybody so that y'all can kind of see that and give us some idea what that process is moving on. So.
In terms of full disclosure, I asked for a copy and received a copy of the master sewer plan for that side of the city. And reviewed it and gave some comments to Mike and to the engineer.
How long ago?
A month. When it was presented to the council, I listened to the presentation and thought to myself, that's going to be a tall order to be able to take. And so I looked at it to see if there were some other ways to less efficiently sewer the area, but maintain reasonable rates. Because what has been designed right now is probably the best engineering solution, but it has you spending a lot of money up front and opens up a lot of land out there that will be decades before it ever gets to
71.
south of 71. So suggested some other things to look at. I believe that they are looking at it.
Okay, well, good.
Can I ask one question? Did you happen to look at the 304 portion of the sewer, the new sewer alignment in the Cooper station?
I didn't look at the alignment in particular, but I did look at the depth.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's not for this, but I'd like to talk to you about that sometime, just because I saw a copy of that, and I had some questions about it, and I'd like to get your take. I mean, it's public, so it's not anything, not
Yeah,
you were looking,
and
you were looking at 71, I was looking at 50.
And I did that analysis just as a individual private citizen. I wasn't representing.
No, I understand, but as an engineer too, I'd appreciate you.
Well, thank you for telling us about that.
Why
It's
don't
always good to do that, and the city should never turn away anybody that has some expertise or knowledge of a topic.
why don't we target the September meeting to have an update on both the water, wastewater, and annexation?
We might even want to have Gene
Yeah, that's
come
what-
and make
Yeah.
a presentation.
It impacts what we're marketing.
if everybody's agreeable, that's what we'll target is wastewater, water, and annexation, kind of a workshop type of setting at the September meeting after we start the budget.
Yeah, that's a good, it kind of, it's a follow-up based on, what the mayor suggested that we do. So it'll be a good discussion all about it.
Anything else for future agendas or anything that y'all think that we need to be working on, preferably on?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, we had a second, first of all.
Second.
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.